Hi, this is Michael William Denny of ThunderShamanism.com, and today we're going to talk about another chapter in the book, The Thunder Wizard Path. If you haven't already, feel free to go back and watch the previous um, videos concerning this book, get you up to speed. So this chapter, The Serpent of Europe, is where I share, a really climactic turning point in me connecting to the ancestral shamanic tradition of Europe, my ancestral path. Now, I've already said to you before that I'd spent the majority of my life thinking that I was of Celtic descent. The last name Denny sounds Irish. As it turns out, no, Denny means Danish. So that means, at least on my father's side, I'm descended from Vikings. Vikings who came over into Europe, and that's what they called them. They called them the Danes. So, there was one of my ancestors was so-and-so the Danish, so-and-so Denny, Danish, that's what it meant. So nope, not Celtic. I'm one of the Germanic invaders of Britain. On my mom's side, I'm Anglo-Saxon, so we've got nothing but Germanic blood flowing through these veins, and that explains why in the 80s when I tried to do Celtic shamanism, I connected, I remember having shamanic connections to the Celtic gods and them looking at me like, what are you doing here? I mean, it wasn't so much that they didn't work with me, but there was always this feeling like, like, why are you even here? So that it was this really sort of showed me why. So I'll explain to you in detail. So I talked to you about the Hool breath and how I had been given the breath meditation and energy meditation for the ancient primordial earth goddess of Europe, specifically, northwestern Europe, the Germanic tribes, who today we know of as Hulda. And that's the Hool breath. I'll have a link down here below on the YouTube page. You can click on that to go ahead and watch that. So anyways, all these changes were happening to me, and I was getting all of this, I was having a direct connection to some forces, some masters, some spirits, things were guiding me and teaching me stuff, and I didn't know where it was coming from, and it was, it was very interesting. So this all culminated at a time when I had run into a dead end with the preferred spiritual path that I had been working with, which was Taoist Mysticism. And I was working with a very esoteric, closed door spiritual path, which taught internal martial arts and cleansing and very, very powerful stuff. And in my experience, the Chinese are unrivaled when it comes to life force energy work. And so among the Taoist traditions, I was working in one that was considered the most powerful, that even Chinese to this day consider to be black magic, because it's very powerful stuff. And so I had run into a dead end, and I won't get into it, but I got into, I did whatever I did, I did something, I was progressing on my path, and, it upset my teacher. And I can only say what I saw, but my experience was that he became intimidated because I was learning things and doing things that he didn't know, and I was starting to teach things, and I was starting, he was afraid I was going to gain a reputation, and that's what I think was going on. So he, without telling me anything, just unilaterally cut me out of the sect. Now, as it happens, I had been thinking to myself, because he and I were working together, and I had been thinking to myself that, gosh, he's driving me crazy. I just wish I could be free of him. But he was my teacher, so that's, a good student, you stay with the teacher. So the universe did me a solid, and he just stopped all communication and, went online and badmouthed me. And so that freed me. Now I could do whatever I wanted. So, but at the same time, now I was blocked from training with the Grand Master of the sect, because you have to go through the channels. You got to go through your teacher who introduces you to the Grand Master. Blah, blah. So that was gone, and I was very frustrated. I was very frustrated because I really wanted to really master some of the deeper aspects of that. Now, when it comes to Taoist mysticism, when you're working with talismans, you've got to learn Chinese, basically. You've got to learn how to write, Chinese characters. You've got to learn Chinese language. It's very complicated, very foreign, very different from, a Western mindset. Very different. And, I would have been willing to do that because I wanted the power and I wanted to gain that power. But to be honest, it was like, I don't want to learn another language. I'm not interested in becoming Chinese. And in fact, I started imagining, what would it be like to learn talismans with some simple shapes and some simple, just straight lines and not all that fancy stuff. I didn't realize it, but what I was asking for was the runes, because the runes are very simple, straightforward, and incredibly powerful. But I had no experience with runes at that time. Anyway, so all of this is going on, and so I'm very upset and I'm very frustrated, and I take a walk in the wilderness, and I'm specifically going to talk to my guides, whoever they are. And so I'm walking, on this path, and I say to my guides, you know what? I have done everything you've asked me to do. You guys called me to this path. So, maybe I haven't shared it, but, becoming a shaman in my, late teens and early 20s was incredibly difficult and stressful, and I tried to push it away. I didn't want this. I just wanted to be normal. Being in, multiple dimensions at one time, it was crazy. And so that's what I meant when I said, listen, you guys called me to this path. And now you've taken away from me, the higher teachings on the most powerful path I've ever found. And so I was very upset about that. And so I said, listen, if you guys want to train me, it's up to you. I've done my part. Now you guys have to do your part. And I was frustrated with them. And then I don't really know where this idea came in my head, but I said something just off the cuff, and I had no expectation that it was going to produce any kind of result, but I said, okay, fine, if there are any ancestral masters out there of my own ethnic tradition who want to teach me, I'm open to learning from you. And immediately, I'm getting chills as I say it now, because the power that I was surrounded by this this power that came over me, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I didn't hear a voice, but I felt a voice say to me, "Are you sure?" Now that's an interesting question, because that's the question I ask my students. Like when students come to me and they want to learn the spirit fighting arts, I sit them down and I say, "Are you sure?" Because I know that they're going to go through some major transformation, and their life will never be the same. And they're going to see things and experience themselves on levels they haven't even yet imagined. And they have no idea how difficult or how challenging it's going to be for them on a spiritual level. The physiological changes. So whatever that entity was said to me, "Are you sure?" And so I knew what that question meant. And the voice went on. It said, because once we show you, you can never go back. You will never be the same. And here was the clincher. You will be responsible for what you learn. Which is why I teach this path. This is why I am constantly on YouTube, why I'm constantly writing books, because I can't hold this information in. It is my responsibility to share it with anybody who wants to learn. I don't care what ethnic background you are. This has been given to me, and I have a mandate to share it with the world. So the universe has some agenda with me and with this, and so this is why I do this. And this is, by the way, why I'm pushing for apprentices, because I have a responsibility to share all my knowledge with somebody or a group of people. I don't know. Anyway, so back to the story. So, of course, I knew what that meant. It meant that I was going to get more than I had bargained for, more than I had asked for, and it was what I wanted. And so, of course, I said, yes, please. And then the message came back, okay, hang on, here it comes. and right after that, they kind of backed off, and the energy left, and I was like, ooh, and I thought, well, maybe I just imagined that, Nope. Soon after that, I started having all kinds of experiences, and all this information was being downloaded into me. You know, like when you get a zip file, you know, you download a zip file because you have to compress all this information into one file because it's too big to be, you know, that's what was happening. I was getting these zip files downloaded into me, and then they were unpacking themselves inside of me. And the depth of, you know, I would have these flashes of understanding of entire deep concepts, but to such a depth that I couldn't put words to it. It was beyond words, you know. And so my struggle has been ever since then to try to put into words all of the information that was given to me. You know, that's what all these books and videos are about. I'm trying to, you know, unpack this zip file, these zip files, and to share with you in words that people can digest, you know, the stuff that's been downloaded into me. You know, and I was married at the time. I'm divorced now, but I was married at the time, and you know, I'd be sitting there in my house with my, you know, my now ex-wife would be sitting there next to me. She'd be looking at me like this, and I'd be going, "Oh, yes, of course," you know, and she's like, "What are you doing?" You know, it was hard for me to explain to her what was going on. So this chapter, the Serpent of Europe, I'm getting to the point of the chapter. The Serpent of Europe. While all this is going on, after I have this talk with my guides and all this thing, I go back and I'm determined to find out where this is coming from. Now, as it turns out, my guides weren't as attached to the idea of, you know, applying it to a certain culture or region or tradition. It just happened to be my ancestral teachers. You know, this stuff, it's all the same. It all goes back to a root knowledge, and it's all the same stuff. You know, there's just different cultures hearing it from different, you know, in different languages and all that kind of stuff, but it's the same stuff. Nevertheless, it is valuable and important to connect with our ancestral heritage. So I go back and I decide I'm going to do a shamanic journey to figure out where this has come from. And that was my question. Where is this whole breath coming from? Where is this? Who are my ethnic ancestors? Where is this all coming from? Give me some frame of reference. And so, by the way, here's an easy way. If you've never done any shamanic journeying, you know, it can be very simple. It can be as simple as this. Get some kind of music that puts you in a trance. There's all kinds of CDs, and, you know, you can download, you know, shamanic drumming tapes. You know, that's probably the easiest thing to do. But any, you know, there's binaural tapes, any kind of dance music, anything that puts you in a trance, that has a, you know, a 6/8 beat. Boom, 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 boom. Anything will put you in trance. You can put your headphones on, crank that on, and just go. But you have to have a very clear question for the ancestors, for the spirits to share with you. So my question was very clear. Where is this coming from? What is my ancestral background? You know, what tribal shamanic background is this that I'm learning all this information from? So I had some music, I put my headphones on, and I went into trance. Now, I was trying to stay awake because I really wanted to know what was going on. So I was trying to get myself into that state where I wasn't awake and I wasn't asleep. And I'm trying, and I was, as it turns out, I was trying too hard, and I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere, and I could see that my body wanted to go to sleep, so I just said, oh well. Because that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you just fall asleep, and that's okay. So I just let myself drift into a sleep. Now, as soon as I fell asleep, I went into a dream. And in the dream, I was flying through clouds. And that's how the dream started. I was flying through clouds. And then I came down and I broke through the clouds. And as the clouds parted beneath me, there was this beautiful green, lush landscape. And it was a western-facing landscape. And so I knew that I needed to take a look at that. And I was looking at the contours of the land, and I was trying to really memorize what I saw. And then I saw in this green, emerald, beautiful landscape, I saw something moving, like the ground started coming alive and moving, and I saw that it was an enormous serpent. And it was a viper, no less. And I could see it moving, and it was huge. I don't know, I mean, it had to have been hundreds and hundreds of miles wide and long. It was just this enormous, giant serpent. And it started, you know, moving, and then it started coiling up, and it started to rise up towards me. And the viper, you know, started coming towards me like this, and wow, and all of a sudden its mouth opened and the tongue flickered, and it was gonna swallow me up, and that, boom, that woke me up out of the trance. It was incredibly frightening and shocking to me. So obviously I had my answer, and I knew that wherever that coastline is, that's where this information was coming from. And it was obvious that, the serpent represented hidden knowledge, secret knowledge, forbidden knowledge. So clearly this was some very powerful knowledge that was coming from the earth, and that was, obviously my ancestral background. So here I am still thinking that I'm Celtic, Now, what I share with is that, in the book, is that I had a personal aversion to anything Germanic. I had some racism. I had a problem with, all the things associated. I grew up in I was born in '63, and I grew up in the '60s, and then we were still in a very post-Second World War thing. So there was a lot of movies about Nazis and, how horrible the Nazis were and all that. So we were still digesting the horrificness of the Holocaust and Nazis. And so I had an aversion to anything Germanic because, the racism attached to that. I also had problems, with the Anglo-Saxon, understanding of these brutal Anglo-Saxon barbarians who came in and devastated and destroyed the poor Celtic, shamanic people, which, by the way, that's not how it happened. I read a whole book on that, so that's not how it happened. But, I had all of these, this bigotry in me towards anything Germanic. So I'm looking at this coastline, and of course the first thing that pops in my mind is, oh, that's Northern Europe. And I'm like, no, I don't want to believe that. I didn't want to believe that. So I looked on all kinds of maps. I looked at maps of Ireland, because I thought maybe I'm Irish. Nope, couldn't find it anywhere. Could not find that coastline anywhere. I looked, okay, maybe I'm Welsh. Some people have said that I'm Welsh. So I'm looking coastline of Wales. Nothing. So I'm thinking, western coast. Well, I grew up in Southern California. Is it somewhere Southern California? Nope. Well, there was only one place left to look. The coast of Germany. Right there below Denmark. Boom, that was it. So I'm like, oh. And then I did some research and found out that Denny actually means Danish. And so, and I'm descended also from Anglo-Saxons, which is, Western Germanic. So boom, that's it. Nothing I could do. I was a Germanic person. And all of this information, this spiritual path, was coming to me from my tribal Germanic ancestors. And that's what started me on this path. So anyway, we can stop there for now for this one. So if you're interested in a very powerful energy practice, I strongly recommend Celestial Qigong. Click on that. I also have a link down here for the Hool breath, which is free, won't cost you a thing, but it's the breath and the meditation for the primordial Earth Mother of Northwestern Europe, specifically for the Germanic tribes. And I'm also offering, while supplies last, I'm offering apprenticeship, which just means it's going to be one-on-one teaching. Hopefully I'll find somebody who wants to learn all of my knowledge, but you don't have to stay with me forever. You can if you want, but it's just weekly 1-hour sessions with me by phone, by Skype, or in person, depending on where you live. And I want to share my knowledge with anybody who wants to learn. So that's it for now, my friends. Until next time.